Good morning, folks. Everything new under the sun. We're going to talk about why NASA believes that Revelation 8 could be upon us. That's an interesting article. We're going to read from the scriptures from Revelation 8, see about the trumpet judgments of God, and see what's coming upon the earth and what NASA believes is coming upon the earth. And I think it lines up pretty much directly. I think you'll find that fascinating. Couple of initial news articles for the news of the day, jpost.com. The U.S. Air Force has apparently used F-35s to carry the first combat mission in the Middle East here against ISIS fighters, specifically. Strikes against ISIS tunnel network mark a first for the USAF, but comes a year after Israel became the first to use the jet in a combat mission. So the U.S. is the first to use them themselves. Israel has already been using the F-35s in Syria, basically to evade the S-300, S-200 systems from Russia. And we're going to take a look at an article that speaks about why they're in there, and you'll be surprised it's not for for the civilians' sake, for rescuing civilians, for trying to take out the dictatorship. It's because there's money there. There's oil. There's spoil, if you will, which is exactly what Ezekiel 38 and 39 speaks of, as to, at minimum, one of the hooks in the jaw for Gog-Magog, one of the reasons why these countries are in there. 2 weeks after the United States Air Force deployed several F-35 fighter jets to the Middle East, the jets carried out their first combat mission against ISIS. The first American combat sortie of a stealth fighter came a day after Islamic State leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi appeared in a video for the first time in 5 years when he declared the caliphate is now infamous speech in Mosul. So al-Baghdadi came out with a video that he spoke to his supporters. He has a gun sitting beside him, and it's the first time they've kind of seen him, I guess, in 5 years. So he's still alive, and that's who Israel was going after, basically, as a leader in Syria. So interesting initial use by the U.S. Air Force, specifically, kind of getting back into the fight, if you will, but this time with the stealth technology, which Israel has already been using and proven has proven worked in Syria. U.S. troops in Syria for long haul, so they're still there. They haven't got out of there by any stretch. Maybe they moved positions, maybe they've taken some personnel out, but they're apparently for the long haul. And here's the interesting part. Why? Well, there's a lot of oil resources, a Pentagon official apparently said. So now we see why the countries are there. Why is there interest? Why is Russia there? Why is Iran there? I think Iran is probably the most honest of the countries. Most of the reason that they're there is because they don't like Israel. They want to take them out. But why is Russia there, you got to ask? Why do they want to have control in the Middle East? Why is the U.S. there? Well, apparently there's a lot of oil resources. A high-level Pentagon official has admitted that the U.S. forces will be in Syria for the long haul, and couples his statement by declaring the territory contains a lot of oil resources and arable land. And this is one of the key points of the last days. I believe a world economic collapse really triggers the invasion into Israel, because the countries, during the economic collapse, during the famine that results from economic collapse, I think the countries of the world, specifically Russia and its alliance, because those are the countries left with any power to do anything in the Middle East, I believe that they see that Israel has resources, has maybe food and water, and is surviving at a time of economic collapse, and that's one of the key reasons why they march on Israel. The unusually frank remarks were made this week by Michael Mulroy, Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Middle East, while addressing a conference at the D.C.-based Center for New American Security. Interesting situation. Mulroy said, "We have a very capable partner," in reference to the primarily Kurdish Syrian Democratic Forces, and quickly know that U.S.-trained SDF happens to occupy key regions in eastern Syria with a lot of oil resources and arable land, and added that we are there with them. Pentagon official further vouched for the think tank's new future policy recommendations on Syria, which call, among other things, for continuing to maintain a presence in over one-third of the country. So the U.S. is not left Syria, and Russia's there, and Iran's there. Of course, Bashar Assad's trying to hold on to whatever leadership he has in Syria. But I think the truth comes out here. Why are they there? Well, they want to invest more. They want to have more oil resources, and this is exactly why Russia wants to control Syria, for the oil resources. Why do they invade Israel in the last days in Ezekiel 38? To take a spoil. That's what Ezekiel 38 says. The comment from the young lions of Tarshish against the Gog and the Magog alliance. Have you come to take a spoil, they say. And so you take the SPF spoil and you get oil. Have you come to take the riches, the gold and silver, the food, the oil from Israel? And why are they going there if everything is awesome, if everything is good, like it is right now, relatively so? Why do they need to march on Israel? Again, I believe they're desperate. I believe they're hooked into it, if you will. Russia and Gog, the leader of Magog, is hooked into marching on Israel and hooked into and drawn into the battle because they have to, because an economic collapse occurs, something major occurs, where they now see Israel's resources, food, water, oil, as necessary to survive effectively. And so it's interesting that we see that's why, apparently, at least part of the reason why the U.S. is still in Syria, because of oil resources and arable land for farming, land for keeping livestock, etc. So that's interesting, to say the very least. All right, moving on to Revelation 8. Revelation 8 speaks of the first 4 trumpets. Let's read this quickly. Starting verse 6, And the angels, and the 7 angels, which had the 7 trumpets, prepared themselves to sound. The first angel sounded, and there was hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth, and a third part of the trees was burned up. This is during the wrath of God, not the tribulation period. This is the wrath of God coming down to hopefully convince the people of the earth that God is in control, and God is cleaning things up. He is taking his vengeance. He is giving the people of the earth what is due to them, as they have not recognized him as Messiah, and they've been giving a long time to recognize him, and they are just flat out rejecting. I think they know by this point that God is all-powerful, that he is the God. I think they know viscerally that God is real at this point in time, and they still reject him outright. And so the wrath coming to them is simply what they have coming, basically, because they did not choose to follow the Messiah. So the wrath of God is coming here. So a third part of the trees was burned up, and all the green grass was burnt up. Verse 8, And the second angel sounded, and there was a great mountain burning with fire. This is what we're going to talk about today. Was cast into the sea, and a third part of the sea became blood, and a third part of the creatures were in the sea and had life died, and a third part of the ships were destroyed. Now we spoke of one thing that could be a great mountain burning with fire. This could be a nuclear weapon. You could look at that and say that could be a nuclear weapon. In one of the past videos I said maybe that's what it is. NASA, however, seems to think it might be different. Let's read verse 8. And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon a third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of waters. And the name of the star is called wormwood, and that's poison, makes the water poisonous. And third part of the waters became wormwood. Now there is a wormwood plant apparently, and that plant has cleansing properties. It purifies, interestingly. And I didn't cover the plant named wormwood, but if you Google wormwood, the plant, you'll see the kind of properties it has, and this is what these judgments are. These judgments are for purifying, for cleansing the earth, and that's exactly what that plant called wormwood is good for, purifying. And many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. So these verses 8 and 9 and 10 here speak of things falling from heaven, causing the waters to become bitter, described as a great mountain burning with fire cast in the sea. The other thing you could say is that it could be an asteroid falling upon the earth. And interestingly, NASA actually believes this is coming to pass, and they're trying to come up with strategies to stop this effectively. Of course, they don't recognize that it's part of the trumpet judgments upon the earth in the last stage, which I think we're quite literally years away from at this point. But let's look at this article. What if a mega tsunami hit the east coast of the United States? This is from ZeroHedge.com. It says, someday a giant meteor will slam into the Atlantic Ocean. A colossal tsunami that is produced will wipe out most of the people that are living along the East Coast. It says, in the 1998 big Hollywood movie entitled Deep Impact, imagine what such an event would look like, and scientists assure us that this is just a matter of time before this takes place. So look at the image. Does that not sound like Revelation 8? A great mountain burning with fire, an asteroid. It says, and since 39% of all Americans live in a county that directly borders a shoreline, we are in an extremely vulnerable position, basically. It says, let's see, in 6 hours, your government, and 124 million people across 14 states will be tested by the greatest disaster ever to hit the U.S. coast. A great wave, 1,000 meters tall, moving towards you at 1,000 kilometers an hour, and that's only the beginning. I want to see. So here is NASA, who believes this is such a thing. It says, and excuse me, you may not spend much time thinking about such a thing, but I find it very interesting that NASA is currently simulating a similar scenario. So NASA has this on their radar. They recognize that there's apparently asteroids, kill-shot asteroids that are coming at us. NASA is going to be using a simulation of an asteroid apocalypse in order to help the space agency prepare for the cataclysmic event. It says, and they are taking it seriously as disaster planners from FEMA will join NASA for a dress rehearsal of Doomsday. They are getting ready for Revelation 8. That's exactly what Revelation 8 says is coming, and this could very well be it, an asteroid burning with fire. That would be kind of the most obvious example of this picture here, an asteroid coming upon the Earth. As it enters the atmosphere, it heats up, it's burning with fire, shining brightly, and really that is the description here. A great mountain burning with fire cast into the sea, causing mega tsunamis. A third part of the sea became blood. A third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and the third part of the ships were destroyed. And you talk about a great asteroid falling into the sea, and that's exactly what could happen. That's exactly what NASA thinks is happening. It says international partners, including European Space Agency, will also be part of the simulation. The drill is said to be a tabletop exercise that will simulate just how a planetary asteroid emergency will play out in real time. I think if they want to understand the results of an asteroid event, a cataclysmic event falling into the sea, I think all they need to look at is Revelation 8, because that describes what will happen in the case where that falls into the sea. NASA has been running these simulations for years, and for good reason. As it happens, we apparently are in the midst of an epic asteroid surge compared to relative peace and quiet the planet has experienced for millions, I'll say thousands, of years. When unexpected space rocks do appear in our scope, sometimes we only have hours' notice of their existence before they streak past. While the chances of catastrophic impact are exceedingly slim, we're nonetheless unprepared for surprise asteroid attacks, which is why NASA is continually working on plans to improve the near-Earth object detection, that's what NEO stands for, and mitigation capabilities. And this is, like I say, this is exactly what Revelation 8 is speaking of. So NASA is quite literally getting ready for a Revelation chapter 8, verse 8 to 10 event. They are getting ready for when a great mountain burning with fire is cast into the sea. And they won't see this coming. They may have a short warning. But I suggest to you that they will not have any way to defend against this. They're not going to have any defensive strategy. And a huge number of people are going to die from this. And this is just part of the wrath that's coming upon the planet. If NASA would just read the Bible, they would see what's coming upon us in the next few years. I would say 4 or 5 years out at this point in time, based on the timing of what I believe is the 7-year tribulation. and they would fully understand the implications of such an event. But I believe that's exactly what NASA is preparing for. They're preparing for Revelation 8, basically. I'll leave it there, guys. Thanks for watching. Something to think about. We're in the last days, and the organizations, the governmental organizations of the world know that know that these things are coming upon us. They just haven't quite connected it with the Bible yet. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video.